Did you find anything good yesterday, by the way?
I bought like a huge amount of just like mass market paperbacks for our store. Nothing like valuable, but
right, bread and butter. Oh my gosh, Obadiah, we're live. Yeah. It's time for another session. It's the tribe. Welcome to the book tribe sessions Saturday night, and finally have an awesome guest sitting in the seat next to me, not next to me in real life, but next to me on the screen, all the way from Oregon. Or is it Oregon or Oregon?
It's pronounced Oregon.
Oregon.
Yeah.
Exactly. All the way from Oregon.
If you were here, you call it Oregon.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, Book Bin, Salem, and Corvallis. Obadiah Baird is in the house. The original weird fiction biblio-gangster.
No pressure.
No pressure. Yeah. So what's been happening? Happy martini time. And what else has been going on? You got anything on the calendar?
Well, I'm getting ready for the Rose City Book and Paper Fair up in Portland, middle of next month.
Okay.
Throwing books into boxes to follow up to that. That's nice though, because it's only about 45 minutes away. I get to sleep in my own bed every night. It's a low pressure.
That is awesome, actually. I'm going to put that up. So if anybody's in the Pacific Northwest, they should get that on their calendar. I'll put the website up for them later. That's a fair is that a good buying fair, good selling fair, both?
Honestly, it's a pretty tiny fair, but it's growing. I've had some good luck buying there. It doesn't compare to like Seattle or the California fairs that I do every year, but it's my local fair, and I got to support it.
Right. That's exactly. I do like supporting the local fair, and it's nice to see dealers that maybe only do one of the smaller fairs that, So since we're on fairs, I wasn't sure what we were going to start talking about tonight, because you've got a lot going on that I want to get to, like the Audient Void, number 4, and like your bookstores, and like your antiquarian business, and just everything that's jamming, and patches on leather jackets. But talk about that West Coast book fair scene. What are the fairs that you do?
So we do Seattle, which I love. I think Seattle, at least on the West Coast, is the best of the kind of regional fairs. We always do really well there. It's a great fair for buying, great fair for selling. And I see a lot of people I know there, so it's also a great fair for hanging out.
Yeah.
We do the ABAA fair every year, whether it's in Oakland or Pasadena.
Okay.
And we do Portland. Those are actually our main fairs.
Nice. I want to do Portland. That is the Portland Fair, the Rose City Fair. Is that what's okay?
Rose City Fair. Yeah.
Is Seattle the Emerald City?
No, it's just the Seattle Antiquarian Book Fair.
What is the Emerald City?
Well, Seattle is the Emerald City. But
right. Okay.
But their book fair is not. They should call it the Emerald City.
I know, that's such a ring. We got to call Lewis Collins and give him, I wonder why. Maybe it's trademarked and he can't because of all the Wizard of Oz stuff.
Well, I know the Comic-Con up there is Emerald City Comic-Con.
Right, exactly. Speaking of cons, I was talking last night just about how if somebody's never been to a book fair, because a lot of people that are watching or listening or kind of just hanging out in the tribe, they aren't doing this, 24/7 like we are. And I was kind of telling them, I came up with the idea that essentially it's a con. If anyone's been to a con of any kind, they need to think about a book fair as basically that. It's just that it is obviously different. The level of merch is different, but it's this gathering place for everybody who's like-minded. It's your tribe. It's your people. They are there. They should go.
Although I'll say, if it is a con, I want to see some John Steinbeck cosplay.
I know, exactly. Well, there are some dealers that naturally do that, and visitors. You'll see some interesting costumery. Just depends on which fair and who's there. Some people are theatrical with what they do, and some shoppers are rather theatrical. I would say the most colorful shoppers I probably have seen were Seattle, and they were just natives, and they were just being them. Like, you know, like super awesome, like ceramics teacher, co-op hippie, fabulous. You know what I mean? And I was really thrilled with that. So, I have a question or two for you. So let's start off with the shops. You have 2 physical stores in 2 cities. How the hell do you that's a lot to manage?
Well, each store has a manager. And
okay.
45 employees, so it is a lot to manage.
It is a lot, yeah.
And honestly, I love the Antiquarian stuff, but that is sort of the sideline that keeps me sane. Will I run, reasonably large general interest bookstores?
Yeah. And do you do, as one or the other of the cities, more like of a quote community bookstore, or are they both kind of really entrenched with what's happening within the local radius? Like some of our favorite, I'm always talking to some of my favorite people who have these bookstores like this around the country, and I don't know if yours is one of them. I'm sure it is, because you guys are fabulous.
So our store in Corvallis has been around over 35 years.
Oh wow.
Store in Salem is coming up on 20 or 25. So yeah, we've been around forever. We're part of the community. I grew up in our store in Corvallis.
Yeah.
That one's been around 35 years and I'm 37. So I don't remember going before.
Yep.
So yeah, they're very much part of the community, and
that's awesome.
We really make an effort. We do author events. We try and you have to balance promoting local arts and things in a way that makes sense from a business standpoint, but we try to do that as much as we can. There's always going to be people who want your support for unending things.
Right.
But,
give us the space and whatever. Yeah.
But whenever we can we can do it in a way that makes sense and works. We absolutely try to do it.
Well, that is awesome. And I'm going to put links up to the shop and does the store have, does the Book Bin have Instagram, Twitter, Facebook? Where should they find you?
So it has all 3. I have to admit that among my 45 employees is somebody who does all of our social media. So I don't have it right off the top of my head.
Okay. No, imagine somebody's doing it for you though. Thank goodness, right? Snapping pictures and doing all this. Bookstores are just like the most amazing content creators. It's like every single tiny square inch is amazing, visual material.
I am drinking a Bombay martini.
Ah, okay. Hold on. I'm going to put that up so that everybody else can see that question. Joyce, you didn't miss anything. It is a Bombay martini.
Bombay martini. Yeah.
Dirty. It looks like. No?
Yeah.
What is a dirty? A dirty martini is when you put a little olive juice in it.
Olive juice. My wife likes them dirty. I tend to drink straight up.
Awesome. Timothy is here, and Joyce is here, and probably a few other people who. Thanks for commenting. That's awesome. Tim and Joyce prefers Plymouth.
That's fair.
That's fair. Okay. Awesome. So we talked a little bit about the shop. Now let's move on to the project that I feel like right now has a lot of your attention, and rightly so. Let's talk about the Audient Void.
Sure. The thing that I was thinking about the Audient Void earlier in sort of preparing about this, and the thing that I realized is the Audient Void in some ways is like the conjunction of my misspent youth hanging out in the punk scene, my love of books and physical print objects, and my love of like horror and Lovecraftian fiction.
Yes.
So I think the only reason that I had the temerity to even try to publish something was just because I came out of that punk scene where, if you had a guitar or were interested in writing or anything, you just did it. You could photocopy your art. You can make posters. And then I've been going to the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival every year, which is in Portland and is spectacular. I go and I watch like one movie over the weekend and hang out with all the authors and listen to poetry readings and panels and things. And it got to the point where I was hanging out with all these authors and just felt like I should be contributing, instead of just being a hanger-on. And so, yeah, I just kind of decided that I was going to print a fanzine. And, it's amazing. Just saying that you're going to do something sometimes is all that it takes. Just
Absolutely.
Like just having the guts to stand up and say, hey, I'm doing this. And then I was incredibly surprised at the people who got on board almost immediately, and with how successful it's been. Because I figured that, I would sink some money into it, never break even. It would just be this project because I enjoyed it. And,
exactly.
And it's had a tremendous amount of success. We've actually made a small amount of money. We've done 3 issues.
Okay.
I was lucky enough to have my friend Dan Sauer, who is a professional graphic designer, volunteer to work on it. Which getting a graphic designer to work for free is like finding a unicorn.
Yeah. Do you happen to have? I don't have the technical capability to show like a still of the cover. I would love to be able to do that, but I just can't until I get the beta of Talk Show format from this amazing platform that we are broadcasting from, which is BeLive TV. So Obadiah Vanna here, Obadiah is going to, yes, there it is. And people have said before, hold it up for a while because it does sometimes delay. That is that number 3 that's already?
Is issue number 3.
Okay. I'll answer that. Yeah, exactly. I'll send that over to you. So Joyce says, let me put that up. That is such a gorgeous cover. It's unbelievable. Joyce asks a few things, and that is, well, that's a good question because I have one. I think. Do I also have 2? I don't know. Maybe I have a connection. Hopefully, there's no more of 1 or 2. Is that right?
Yeah, they're completely sold out.
Wow.
So they're sold out before the next issue.
Will you do a digital issue of it? That's a great question. And I don't even really know how to, haven't really done any thinking on digital zine production post-print. And doing it hand in hand is a really kind of cool concept because you can make the e-zine available far and wide and for a lower cost and lower production cost. But you can still have the beautiful kind of, the limitation, if you will, of an actual physical zine that only does a run of 50 or 500. And once it's out, it's out. But you got a longer arc of, longevity for the content if you go ahead and do an e-release. So have you considered that?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we've thought about. It's a little bit tricky. Part of it is just that I personally am not that into digital content.
Right.
But I also feel like I have a little bit of a responsibility to the authors to maybe make their work more broadly available than in the 150 copies that I print.
Right.
So I am trying to figure out how to balance that. I kind of don't ever really want to have a situation where the digital version is competing with what I think is a much more interesting physical version.
Right.
So I have a feeling that if we ever do, and then also there's just a last bit, which is that running the bookstores and doing everything else, I have a finite amount of time to put into the project. And
of course.
So all my time has been taken up by creating each issue and curating the content and all that. I have a feeling that what we'll think about doing, and don't hold me to it, but I have a feeling that what we'll think about doing is putting out a digital version of maybe the first 3 issues once the 3rd issue is sold out.
Yeah.
Maybe do a yearly. Is that way you'll get a little more value for your dollar also on the digital version, and that way we'll just be putting out a digital version of one of issues that aren't available in the physical format any longer.
Right. I like that a lot. And actually, Joyce has a lot to say about that for a few reasons. She's done a lot of e-publication herself. she's taken a lot of local historical things and other, fiction and done really cool e-releases with it. So she's somebody to ask about so many things. But that's definitely something that is in her oeuvre. And she's saying that she doesn't love the idea of starting in the middle, that it's incomplete. And I know, of course, I mean, but they're not serialized. They are actually standalone. So just enjoy, I would say just enjoy the issue and catch it, eventually maybe you'll be able to catch it for its evolution if you see 1 and 2 digital and get 3rd or 4th in print. But by all means, jump in and just grab 4 when it goes live. Are you going to do a larger run when 4 comes out? How many are you doing?
So I'm playing it by ear with how long it takes to sell through each issue. Because basically I'm rolling the money that gets made selling each issue right into the next one.
Right.
So far, the print runs have been 150 copies, and those have sold out pretty much right when the next issue came out.
Exactly. So I think it needs to be, exactly. Would you consider either Kickstartering or doing a subscription for the series so that you have funding going forward, knowing you're going to, like, say, get to 10? I mean, you've got the demand for it.
Right.
I'm betting for sure.
The main reason that I've avoided wanting to do subscriptions is because then I feel like there's pressure to get each issue out in a certain time frame. And like our last issue, we thought was going to take, we started it in October and we thought that it would be out in January, and it ended up running about 2 months longer than that because, running a retail business during the holidays.
Oh, yeah, exactly. You definitely have your hands full. Everybody's just all like, let's get this. Everybody is going to want their hands on the zine, though. And now I kind of feel bad for that 151st person. I'm like, now I'm not thinking about that. I'm like, oh, I mean, hey, that's the nature of limited editions. That's the nature of so much of the material that we work with is scarcity. But that's why, it'll never replace having the physical one in your hand, especially with the zine. It's just got to be, But is there a place where someone who's watching or watching on the playback, what's the best place? Could they get at least a teaser of either the cover of 3 or cover of the old work? Is there a place where there's any kind of even though it's not the whole thing to read, like maybe a bit?
So most of that content is on the Audient Void's Facebook page.
Oh, awesome. That's exactly. So if you're interested, like that Audient Void page, which is different than your personal page, find that page. I'll put it in the comments and at least kind of get engaged in what's rolling out next for you and be the first to know when 4 is up for sale. That's the place. Yeah, exactly. That's really exciting stuff. It's gorgeous. You showed the cover. Would you like to do a reading from 3 or 4 or give us something that's coming in 4? Or maybe you had said that you really liked the way the intro kind of encapsulated what you're about, what it's about.
I think it does a great job of kind of talking about the fiction in the issue. Okay.
We're listening.
Okay. No pressure.
Have another sip. It's early for you, but over here it's the weekend sessions. It's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, here's just a bit from my intro, and it's talking about the short fiction. I publish both poetry and short stories, and there's also a recurring nonfiction column also.
Okay.
A train is rolling by my house, blowing its mournful whistle and shaking the walls as the neighbor's hound starts in with its baleful howling. It's a dark night and the rain is pouring down, drumming on our skylight and overflowing the gutters. Outside my window is a rain-swept moor, a desolate expanse broken only by the tracks of the train and the howling of the distant hound. The night brings to mind The Trains by Robert Aickman, with its expansive heath and lone ghostly house shaken by the roar of the trains and by something far more spectral. I'm also reminded of The Hound of the Baskervilles and its fell beast. These elements are such potent emblems of the Gothic novels and of the more modern forms of horror that have followed it, that on many nights I find myself transported by my landscape, unmoored from my ordinary life by the darkness of night. In truth, I live in a quiet neighborhood in Salem, Oregon. In truth, I do not believe in the spectral or supernatural. Furthermore, I know that the baying hound is no fell beast, but rather the neglected dog of my unpleasant neighbors, who leave the unfortunate beast outside far too often, day or night, rain or shine. The trains roll by during the day as well, and while they always have a strange literary effect on my soul, outside the dead of night, that effect is far more Jack Kerouac than it is Aikman-esque. Despite this knowledge, the power of the strange fictions my mind creates when the night falls and the right elements combine remains tangible and seductive. My external world combines with my internal life to create moments of imaginative beauty. This interaction between landscape and the ephemeral nature of reality is at the core of many of my favorite works of fiction. It also happens to be at the core of the 3 works of short fiction published in this issue of the Audient Void. Pastoral landscapes shift with subtle grotesqueness, and back again in Daniel Peterson's story, The Many Roads to Weatherly. An old man succumbs to nature like an untended garden while his daughter desperately tries to find some way to escape in The Darkest Woods Walk at Night by Sarah Walker. Finally, the strange woodland of a queer, I'm never sure how to pronounce it, fin de siècle novel.
Oh yeah, perfect, yeah.
Shifts and displaces the urban landscapes of London while mysterious figures walk unknown paths in The Green Ribbon by Nicole Vasari. In all 3 stories, physical and psychic space shift fluidly, and at times the distinction between the 2 becomes meaningless. Just as my suburban neighborhood can become a desolate expanse, a forest can become menacing, a bright day's walk towards home can become a march through a veiled hell, and rural London can become a woodland, peopled by ambivalent and spectral beings. The external and internal blur, leaving the solidity of reality unknowable.
That's crazy beautiful. I'm totally blown away. That is awesome. So we're treated to Baird fiction as well as the amazing entries that you have to do the hard work of narrowing down for this limited space format. That was crazy. I know that they can go to the Audient Void Facebook page and find stuff. Can they find at least that in text so they can take their time reading it? Because that was crazy.
I should post that on there. I have not, but
that's not the whole thing, but it's like a beautiful desiderata. That was gorgeous. Thank you so much. I'll put the link for everything that has been spoken of today, and maybe if I'm lucky, a quote or 2 from that I'll paste in here. Awesome. That was fabulous. So speaking of those submissions, let's talk about the evolution of how did you put out the first all call to get submissions, and then how did that evolve? Just because we're friends, I've heard you talking about how many. The numbers are crazy for how many submissions for volume 4. So that arc, I'm curious for how that moved along.
Yeah, and thinking back on it, it's hard to remember how I got the quality of submissions that I got for issue 1, because I feel like I got really good stuff right off the bat.
Yeah.
But I really just made a Facebook page and invited the weird fiction authors I knew to follow it, and just kind of started posting everywhere I could find that I was going to publish this thing, that I was looking for submissions. Facebook is kind of an amazing tool for trying to bring something like this together. There are a lot of groups, a lot of Lovecraftian fiction groups. There's one that's specific to the Northwest Lovecraftians, and I just posted a submission call to as many of them as I could find. And I mean, I published a prose poem by Willem Pugmire, who lives in Seattle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's had a collection put out by Centipede Press, and pretty big name in weird fiction.
Yeah, totally.
He was in my first issue, just because I
massive. Yeah. Centipede Press, by the way, if anybody, that's something to snatch up when you see it. We were talking long tail game and specking on things to hold for later to build a collection with, not necessarily for resale, but sometimes you're thinking about that. Man, we've talked about that press before, as far as being just top notch for this genre, gorgeous, limited, unbelievable quality, sumptuous and rich, and sensory overload because they're just so beautiful and unique. Every one of them is so unique. Yeah. Do you have any for sale?
I do actually. I have a decent number of Centipede Press items at the moment.
Cool. Very, very cool. Yeah. Travis says he loves Derek's books. Yes. So yeah, Centipede Press. Well, you guys know where to buy some. Seriously, if you want to get yourself a present or start adding to your weird fiction collection, that is where to go. And at the book bin, that's where you can find them. But for issue number 4, you had so many submissions. Do you think that the genre lends itself to an intelligent amateur writer, a little more thoughtful perhaps of a writer than some other genres with people who aren't necessarily doing it as their day job, but even as a fan writer come in with a little more respect for the craft or respect for the legacy? So I don't know. I'm just wondering how there's so much quality in this area.
Well, I think something that you see, to sort of touch on what you just said there about the fan writer or somebody who maybe that isn't their day job.
Yeah.
I think that what genre does is recognize that most writers, that's who they are. I think there's this idea among literary writers that success means that writing is what you're doing professionally. Mm-hmm. The matter is, how many writers do you know? And then how many of them are paying their bills doing that?
Exactly.
Even in literary fiction, it's a minuscule number of people. Mm-hmm. I think all that genre's done is bring that out into the open and said, the expectation for success is not that this is your career or that this is what you do for a living.
That reminds me. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I think it also has a tremendous history of fan writers and an incredibly fluid amount of movement between fan writers and professional writers going back to the very beginning in the 1920s.
Exactly. That's what I'm going to say. You go back to the beginning and that is who's creating the golden age and laying the brickwork for, kind of screeching the brakes off of the Gothic novel in the 19th century and turning the corner into early 20th. It's essentially fan fiction. It just sounded, we don't use that terminology when we describe that early work, but that's absolutely what it was. Cheers.
Somebody asked me to hold up my drink.
Yeah. If you want to move us through those early decades, you can do it definitely better than I can. But while you think about that, this is so far afield from weird fiction and horror, but there is an author who she's all Oprah famous and whatever, but actually what she writes is super soulful and real and gritty and just real as fuck. And I love her. And that's Elizabeth Gilbert. And she has a book called, I think, Big Magic is the book where she talks about this concept. She says that when she was really, really young and kind of like starving and hungry in a soulful sense, and probably also a college poor literal sense too, she has two concepts that she espouses. One is that she says, everybody wants something. Everybody who, has a drive to be published or something like that, they all want it. It's a matter of who wants it more. And she puts it as, how many shit sandwiches are you willing to eat in order to get there? And she said that she knew she wanted to do it. She had a little ceremony and little candle. And when she was a young teen said, I will be a writer and I will eat your shit sandwiches and yours and yours and yours. And I will borrow some. These are so good because I will do this. But the other part of it that she said was, this is so key, and it touches to what you were saying, and for all of us. She said, to her craft, to this muse of writing or this oracle of writing or whatever it is, she said, I will never ask you to support me. I will support you. Like, you writing are this thread of, effervescent, ethereal something coming from the soul of humanity or the soul of below, whatever, in Cthulhu's, in that case. She said, I will ask that you continue to feed me in, creativity, and I will work with you, but I will never burden you by saying, oh, be everything for me, including what pays the electric bill. So, kind of like, I like that concept, and it kind of frees you to just explore your magic, your gift, your passion, and not say, I want to get to the point where you are absolutely everything or I'm not a success. So, but you can also be successful moving through these, niches and through these, these things. So back to, so fans from the get-go. I mean, we've both seen archives and work from the 20s and 30s and seen this, fans keeping Weird Tales alive, fans keeping or moving, becoming from a fan writer to a published author to, hey, my buddy writes too, to becoming the editor in a year in those early decades when things were moving so quickly, and it was some little guy in an office with a typewriter keeping this alive, or we wouldn't have this genre.
Yeah, absolutely, and going back to earlier, I said that my misspent youth around punk rock kind of had led to me publishing the Audient Void, but there was also a moment when I started getting really into science fiction where I realized that punk rock wasn't where any of that DIY ethic started. There were fanzines in the science fiction genre going back way further that you could find the exact same ethic in science fiction fandom. This idea that anyone can step up and do something.
Absolutely. It's wonderful. So here's a great time to two things. Yes, hold that magazine up. Jim asks to hold it up so we can see that artwork. And Jim and everyone who has commented, thank you for watching and commenting. It's been so engrossing that I haven't paid that much attention to who's streaming in, but I wanted to give Obadiah, kind of all the platform here to talk about all these amazing things that he's doing. But the Audient Void is a Facebook page that you can follow, and a website for the shop is www.thebookbin.com, and we're going to put links up to all of that. But Jim, that's a great question for you, Obadiah. He asks, did you base your magazine on another magazine, past or present?
So in the early 70s, there was, it's weird, they fall somewhere between amateur press and I don't know, their publications are very amateurish, but they're called Necronomicon Press, and they actually published a lot of very important Lovecraftian and weird fiction work. It was in this interesting, weird time. It was all saddle stitched, all in a similar format to the Audient Void. But they were publishing some stuff that was completely out of print, stuff that was coming from fanzines, Lovecraft, people who were part of the Lovecraft circle in the 1930s. And I always really liked their format. They're all black and white. They're all, saddle stitched. They're all very simple. But I like the idea that you could publish important work very economically.
Yes.
And I think there's an aesthetic to that kind of economy that I really like. I really appreciate it. I think I don't think I'm just copying that aesthetic, because publishing Void cheaply is an important part of how I'm making it work. But I also feel like part of the side effect of that is that it has a very throwback kind of aesthetic that is evocative of those. There's also Crypto Cthulhu, which was a fanzine in the early 80s, I think, which has a similar kind of look and format. And in fact, Alan Kay, who's done the cover art for all 3 of our issues, he's been doing fanzine art going back to the 1870s and did art for a lot of those early.
Nice.
And it's been wonderful to work with. It's very easy to work with. Really nice guy, and is still a huge proponent and supporter of amateur, press and fanzines. And
that's wonderful. It's freedom, to be able to do that work and to be able to collaborate and have it also be gorgeous and lush and have, some permanence because it's beautiful or because of the content. It's so great. It's so great. I respect what you're doing so much. So any other Audient Void questions, please pop in and comment. But let's talk a little bit about things with spines. I know, and talk about some of the things that you've either bought recently. We like to show and tell here in the tribe, and it can just be, what's on your desk or what's in your mind that you've either bought recently or sold recently that's just awesome. I mean, show and tell time.
I have an amazing kind of small archive coming in the mail any day now of are you familiar with the Philip K. Dick bibliography that was done by Lovecraft? It's published by Underwood Miller.
Yes.
So I'm getting about 7 or 8 of the pre-publication states of that, which were published by a collector I know directly from Lovecraft. And I can't remember, either 5 or 6 of them are signed by Philip K. Dick.
Nice.
I'm pretty excited about that.
That's wonderful. Yes, that is fabulous.
That's probably the thing that I'm most excited about. I got a couple of other signed PKD pieces from the same guy.
Okay.
One, it's one of the Greg Press editions, and it's signed by Philip Dick and the guy who wrote the intro with a letter from Philip K. Dick to the guy who wrote the intro, in which he refers to divorce as the 5th horseman of the apocalypse.
Oof. Kind of is. Joyce says some of us are trying to read the spines behind you. Yeah, exactly.
That's all my personal collection there.
What's in PC? I call it personal library. What's in the PL?
So I actually collect a lot of more contemporary science fiction, fantasy, and horror authors. I really like going to author events. I really like collecting books as they're coming out. I read the genre a lot. I got a really great collection years ago from a guy who had done editorial work for Underwood Miller.
Oh, nice.
He put his whole collection together at the time in the 70s and 80s. And I could see all the books that he had bought as they came out, and then he had gotten signed by people. And it was an amazing collection, just incredible stuff. And looking at that collection, I kind of decided, and I shouldn't say this because I'm trying to sell really expensive older books to people, but I decided that for myself, I would try and put together a collection like that, of contemporary as they're coming out. And
I think that's brilliant, actually. We were talking about that today on Rare Book Cafe, looking at, well, we were talking about it from like collecting either minor authors or a set of authors that are, let's say, a decade or 3, a generation kind of behind the peak arc right now of expensive modernism, just going, okay, so 40s or 50s Mad Men or whatever is really spiking right now, or, shift the compass forward 2 decades and look there, for what was either relevant or exciting or, underdiscovered. I mean, then you can actually have some, playing with your passion instead of having it just be stuff that you're, pinning. You don't want to just Pinterest everything and have everything only be this like graphical place marker for the dust jacket that everyone worships, but you can never touch. So I totally agree with that. And then spinning it back though too, you do have the opportunity to work with material that is that like jaw-dropping, holy crap, the mother of the book. And that is the kind of stuff, the seminal works or the things that are mind-blowing. And we all get to, handle a lot of that, but you definitely work with a lot of it that I know people would love to, hear about, like the Chambers book or any of the 19th century things that you've interacted with, with especially the Gothic pre-Lovecraftian kind of arc within 19th century fiction.
That Chambers book is the hardest book I've ever sold. I wanted that book to go home with me so bad.
Right? Oh my God.
But I know the person who bought it, and I know that it went to a really good home. So
that's a nice feeling too, just being able to have really great material move through our business, move through across our desk. We got to experience it. We have for the story for ourselves. We get to be temporary guardians, I always say, even if it's not permanent guardianship. And then seeing where it actually ends up, even if that's not the final destination, it's a part of the rest of the story. But it is really nice when it goes somewhere that you anticipate will be a semi-permanent home. That's a super, super nice feeling.
If I could actually circle back, though, to what you were saying about more contemporary stuff, I really make a point of not just collecting that stuff, but also having that in what I buy and sell. I have, the Philip K. Dick books that I was talking about, but I also have signed Brandon Sanderson first editions, or, copies of Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, right. Or, John Scalzi. And part of the reason I do that is because I feel like if you go to a book fair and you walk in, and I don't want to speak badly of anyone, but if you walked into any booth selling science fiction, you would think the genre had ended in 1980.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
And incredibly important work has come out since then. It's just, from an antiquarian standpoint, people
right
feel like it's worth buying and selling.
Or, well, I guess sometimes what I've done some thinking on this, and my thinking is sometimes the test of time is what starts to cement something. And so I'm not sure what else to compare it to. The first thing that popped into my head was like the Hollywood star, which that's just kind of a silly comparison, but something can seem, when do you call something for its greatness? I mean, you can certainly call it the minute it's out, but by it standing the test of time and sitting through 2 generations, kid and parent of enjoying the work and having it be just as formative and fresh. And, I guess that may be then when it gets even more elevated, but I don't actually think that that's the reason why we're not seeing that in the booths of some of the big fairs. I agree with you. It's just a matter of like, that holding it up in that rare light, and such that chasing the trophy, it's almost like it's not worth having if it's not so hard to get that everybody's kind of like got to go, fist to cuff over it. So that may be some of it. And Joyce has a great point that I'm going to bring up here. And she says, buy the books you love. I mean, that's great advice that I've said from day one. We can't always adhere to that because when we're buying to sell, we have to be opportunists and move material. But if you have to make a choice and you connect with it in some way, then that's definitely key as a dealer. But as a collector, you should absolutely listen to that and just buy and find a new place to love something different. Sidestep a little bit, and that author that is, look at who was in that author's circle, who for some reason has not become, gold bullion as they've moved through time, and start buying there, or anything like that. I love that you do that. It's a very modernist approach to a very old scenario, and I think that is a very important component to us moving forward as a trade. Yep. And book arts and contemporary works that tend to sit a little more in the last 20th century, they kind of speak to that also. I think it's any of the tenets and ideas and philosophies that we house that with, it's the same. It's going to be the same conversation mentally. My brain just wants to go down that road right now, but go ahead.
There always seem to be exceptions, like Tommy or, David Mitchell, or, people who for some reason seem to get to enter the canon a little bit earlier, or be considered legit a little bit earlier. But I'm never totally clear why them, but
exactly. Okay. So This might be an awkward question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. We never want to talk about something and then like trash what somebody loves, but can you think of anybody who has that mystique and you feel like kind of it should like knock the halo off? Like why not, who's a blockbuster that you feel like is kind of it's not warranted?
I understand why Heinlein is important to the genre.
Yeah.
But I think he's pretty tremendously overrated as a writer.
Okay. There you go. Yes. Real talk Saturdays.
On a more recent tip, people who are in sci-fi fandom or read sci-fi really love John Scalzi. And I just cannot wrap my head around why. He's all right. But
yeah.
You would think that he was the second coming of Heinlein to listen to people talk about him.
Right. Yeah, that's a great topic. I'd love to hear other people's, who are they reading right now that they feel like nobody's got, a light on, and who are they tired of hearing about? There was an author, and I want to write it down right now for my personal use. There was a book that you were super excited about it coming out, and I saw a couple other friends with bookshops and people who are in this genre writing the same excitement. I want to say like 6 months ago. It was a book. I'm that person who walked into the bookstore. There was a book. It had a dust jacket and it had a bunch of letters on it. And it was blue.
Blue? Wait.
Not the blue part. I'm just saying I'm that person who walked into the shop and pulled that horrible trick of asking you to like find that mystery book. But I mean it. There was an author that was flowing across everybody's.
Was it Born by Jeff?
Yes, it was. Exactly. This is what we do. This is what booksellers do.
Right back.
Get it? Okay. Now, this is one that I think critically everybody should take note of and read it. And Joyce, exactly. I feel you. I figured it out. It was just for your collection that, yeah, you got to stick to that. Oh, okay. So the author is exactly Vandermeer. And everybody was buzzing about this. Can you talk a little bit about this book?
It's the best book I've read this year. And Annihilation by him was the best book that I read last year, I think. He is a tremendous writer. I think I go on a little bit too often about the idea that if you want to really find a literature that engages with the world that we live in, and that really science fiction and weird fiction are probably the most two prescient and important genres to relate to. Yeah. I think I maybe sometimes oversell that. In the case of Born, I think that's actually fairly accurate. I don't know. I don't want to oversell the book, but it both has some of the most touching interpersonal relationships that I've read in a long time, except they're between a woman and a strange, growing, possibly alien creature.
Cool.
It has a giant flying killer bear. It has the best kaiju fight scene I've read in a novel ever.
Oh my God.
It has the most thoughtful take on genetic engineering and bioscience I've read probably in a long time. It's just a tremendously strange book. It's hard to... I don't think anything I could say could really do it justice or really even encapsulate any amount of what it is. But yeah, it's a tremendous novel.
That's awesome. It's on my list then. I'm going to put it on my list and I'm going to dive right in. I really don't read that much fiction these days. And I just read so much nonfiction and stuff for research and reference related stuff that, but I really finally found, I think it was last year, I found a book during summertime in Charlottesville, Virginia that someone recommended, and I dove in and read it, and I realized how beautiful it was to immerse myself in character development in some place that wasn't where my head and my body was right now. And so, yeah, I'm looking for pieces like that. Jim says Red Shirts was decent. Are you familiar with that? It's
a Scalzi novel. I would agree that it was probably one of the better books of his that I've read. I don't know. It got a little too meta at the end in a way that I don't know. I don't want to give anything away. I've come to the conclusion that Scalzi just isn't to my taste. You know?
Exactly. I gasped because there's all these buttons over here on the back side of production, and I did what I told everybody I'm always scared of doing, which is like basically hitting the gong. And instead of pressing hide the current comment and putting up the next comment, I pressed end broadcast. But luckily, suckers, we're still here. Luckily, there's a are you sure you want to end the broadcast button? Thank you, developers who do that. Honey, is that back-end code or UI? But God bless those developers. We're still here. We're still here. Front end, thank you. I was like, so sorry. Joyce says she has no time to sit and read fiction. Exactly. So she uses audio for fiction. Oh, I've heard a lot of people talking about this, and I don't know if I have audio processing issues, but I zone out when it's listening only, and I feel like I have to see it in order to, I think I'm such a visual person that I'm not saying that somebody who does the audio thing isn't, but I'm just a freak and probably broken, but I kind of have to see it so that I can go there. But I'm going to try it. I'm going to challenge myself and try it.
I think you have to really think about which books are going to work as audiobooks.
Okay. That's probably a good point.
Now that I'm running the business, I'm driving down to Corvallis a lot and listening to a lot of audiobooks.
Okay.
I've found that like dense nonfiction does not work for me.
Okay.
And like harder SF where you have to actually pay attention to the science and things doesn't work for me. But there are a lot of audiobooks that I really like. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good point. Exactly. And Kathleen says, she says, for some reason I can't show that comment right now. I'm so sorry. But she says that timeless, classic, relevant books, they work really well. And I think probably what would work for me is revisiting ones that I already somewhat know the framework of, but I want to drink in again the language and the color and the tapestry of it. But if I have some walking familiarity, but if I'm trying to actually observe what's unfolding, what happens is I found that I just get lost when I'm only on an audio kind of stream. Now that just might be me. And Joyce, of course, if you love a book, immediately she wants a sweet hard copy. Yes. Yeah, exactly. You want to get your hands on a hard copy once you've listened to it. But it's not exactly outside of a subscription or your library. It's not like it's a cheap alternative to listen to audio, at all. Do you subscribe to one of the Get As Many As You Want programs, or how do you get your audiobooks? That's a question for everybody. How do you get your audiobooks?
I just recently started doing Audible.
Okay.
And so far I like it, but it's so recent that I don't feel like I can definitively say much about it.
But yeah, I think that would keep you from kind of hesitating on every purchase, because if sometimes they're like $16, $18 for one book, and usually we can find somebody with a bookstore who's got a hard copy for us, especially if it's not something that was published in the last 12 months. It's easy to find. But that is awesome. Do you sell any other multimedia material in either of the shops?
We sell audiobooks in both stores. We sell DVDs and music in our Corvallis store.
Nice. Yeah. Do you ever have live music in any of the stores? Or have you?
There is an event in Salem called First Wednesday. It's just kind of like downtown. There's stuff going on.
Right. Like an art walk or something like that?
And at some point, we just decided that the easiest thing to do was to just always have the same two jazz musicians every first Wednesday. So
that's very cool.
Our music.
That is very cool.
They're good.
But he's in that vicinity. I would say plan your trip around a Wednesday, because you're gonna, I love when bookstores have a little more going on, and you can just it feels like a speakeasy and a gathering place. And, you know, we've talked earlier with other people about the bookstore as a kind of nexus for social justice and as a hub for social movement, you know, so it just can be so many different things. Those rebellious science fiction readers, you know, those radical, I'm just kidding. You've got, I'm sure, a lot of actual, somebody cut me off, please.
We have a lot of really good book clubs in our state.
Yeah.
We have a science fiction book club, a graphic novel book club, a bestsellers book club, and recently a feminist book club.
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
Wow. Oh, that is awesome. And Travis says he has a bad habit of immediately buying signed first editions of the books he loves. That's not a bad habit.
Travis should visit my bookstore then.
Exactly, especially because you really have a great scope on these, you know, hyper moderns, or on, you know, we all know so many writers, you know, buying their work and supporting, you know, working writers is something that I'm so thrilled to see that a lot of folks are actually kind of already aware of. I'm going to try to be more aware of that myself. And Joyce gets the arc too. Very cool. That is very cool to be respected.
I put a real emphasis on signed first editions. Both in my store, you know, for the collection of rare books, and my personal collection, I almost exclusively collect signed first editions. Mostly because as a collector, I try and put as many limits. I try to create as many kind of like artificial limits on what I'm collecting as I can, try and keep it vaguely under control. I mean, I'm a married man. I got to keep it under some kind of control. Exactly.
There's some rule. Exactly. No, parameters help collectors actually be able to play, but still have a strong enough filter that it's self-limiting, so that, you know, you're not. That makes it more fun too. It makes the hunt more fun. Well,
I feel like we need one of those like ads for gambling addicts for the book club or sometimes. Like,
absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Well, we're rounding out. Hard to believe we're rounding out the hour, and I'm not saying we're saying goodbye right this second. But if anybody has any other comments or questions for Obadiah, who you know where he is now. Now you know you can find him on the website, Facebook, anywhere. But you've got him live right here. If anybody has any questions, he really is the person to ask when it comes to both contemporary and golden age and early horror, weird fiction, science fiction. This is the guy right here. So I hope we get like one more really great question for you. Otherwise, you know, this has been awesome. And tell me again the projected dates for Audient Void 4.
Well, I try not to project dates for the Audient Void because I've still got about 85 submissions to read, and then we've got I'm never sure how much back and forth editorial work I'm going to need. I mean, we try to do 3 a year, so hopefully within 3 more months, but we'll see.
Okay. All right. Well, like a fallish rollout. That sounds really.
Yeah, and just hopefully.
Okay, tell me one more inside thing. Does the artist create the cover art based on the totality of the issue?
So,
does he use the content as inspiration, or is he continuing with a series of artwork?
So actually, unfortunately, Alan Kay has macular degeneration and is making very little new art at all.
Oof.
But he's the kind of artist who's just been compulsively drawing. I mean, like I said, he's been doing art for fanzines going back to the 1970s. And as far as I can tell, he's just been drawing that whole time.
Right.
So basically, I email him and say, you know, I'm going to be doing another issue. And he just starts sending me images. Like, I think I looked at probably 50 different images from him.
How awesome.
And I just go through them and look for something that I think is going to be evocative and will kind of represent. I mean, it's all horror art, so it's all stuff that could theoretically work. But I do try to go for things that are full more of a full page size and have a background. And really what I'm thinking is what's going to jump off.
Yep.
And really grab people.
Exactly. So far, so good. They're all really captivating. And that is an amazing place to be sitting in with great submissions as far as the verse and the stories. And then to have, you know, the candy of pick which art you want for the front. I mean, it sounds like a project that's got a lot of wind beneath it and behind it. So we wish you continued success. And I think, you know, you will have it. Can't wait for 4. Do you have time for a few more questions?
Yeah, of course.
Travis asks if you've ever read Livia Llewellyn's short fiction, and the Furnace collection blew him away.
I have not.
Ooh, we got to write it down.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, that's going to go on the permanent record. Thank you, Travis Scott. That's awesome. Got a new one to explore. And Travis, is it sci-fi or fantasy or sword and sorcery, or, you know, where does it sit? I asked that only because of that last name feels a little more like fantasy. But I look forward to hearing the answer for that. But I'm really bad at telling everybody who we are and what we're doing. This is the Book Tribe, and my name is Kara Azatola, and I am Little Sage's Books. I'm the Little Sage, aka the Armchair Antiquarian, and the Book Tribe is a show that is on as many nights of the week as viewers will support it, and as many nights of the week as I can think of something to talk about or have a fabulous guest on, shooting for the afternoon or 7 p.m. And we really want it to be a place where not just book dealers, but book buyers and book lovers and people who are excited about everything that either goes in between those boards or goes into creating what's in between those boards, or the art and archives and letters and photography that make up this crazy printed world that we all seem to be a part of. Everybody who loves that and can't get enough of really the history of the human experience, that's the tribe. And hopefully everybody keeps kind of gathering around so that we can share stories and ideas and visions for the future. That's what this is about. There's a Facebook page and a Facebook group for the tribe, and that's all findable through the magic of, you know, links, and probably what you're looking at right now tells you that. But look for us again here. Look for Audient Void 4, and with that, we've got another question. And that's Joyce asking Peter Klein's, what do you think of?
Peter Klein's is on my semi-massive to-be-read pile, but I have not gotten to it yet.
Okay, another one on the list. Travis, thanks for answering that. I was so off. It's not it's not sword and fantasy. It's dark, cerebral, Lovecraftian. That's right up your alley.
Yeah, I'm all about that.
Yeah. Okay, so that's on the list. Thank you. Thank you. Dark, cerebral, Lovecraftian. That is primo stuff. Excellent. Well, we're going to be jotting that down and linking to that author. Is that new work, Travis? I mean, we could Google it, but if I jump over to different tabs, I'll get all confused. I'm assuming it's new-ish work, so very cool. We have that on our lists now. And I want to thank you again for taking your happy hour time to be with the tribe today, Obadiah. You are definitely part of the tribe and a friend and a colleague. And everybody who came in today and asked great questions, thank you so much. That's it for me. Anything else you going to add?
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. No, but thank you. The pleasure is mine. Tribe, we will talk to you soon. This session is out. Peace out, tribe.